Guess where I am today? I am in Ohio, and as you can see behind me, Master Fluid Solutions celebrating 70 plus years of being in business. And I'm with my buddy Dave today. We're going to talk past, present, future, and eco-friendly of metal fluid working. So Dave, I'm excited to learn today. To be fair, it is one aspect of manufacturing that I was really poor at. So I am happy to learn. I'm excited to learn. And I know now, with years of wisdom, how significant metalworking fluid can be and should be. So thank you. I'm ready to learn as well.
All right, Tony, we're happy to have you here. Looking forward to spending a day together, helping you and your viewers learn a little bit more about metalworking fluids. We at Master have been pioneers in the industry for 70 plus years now, and we really, know how important and what a difference it can make to metalworking.
Well, you guys have had the growth across the world. You have facilities in China and Europe and India, here in the U.S., walking around this facility, 80,000 square feet. It's massive, the tanks that are here. But let's start at the beginning. Sure. 1951 was the start. What was the past like, and what was the growth been like?
Yeah, so we started in 1951 thanks to Clyde Sluhan, a pioneer in the industry. His family still owns the company. We're in the third, going into the fourth generation of owners. He had a dream, right, and a belief that he could improve metalworking with a water-based metalworking fluid. Most of the machining was done with straight oils at that time, but he knew with his experience that he could make something better.
You mentioned straight oils, you mentioned the experience, you mentioned making something better. He really was a pioneer. I'm walking around this facility, his pictures everywhere, his legacy is everywhere, right? And we're talking about, at a specific point in time, this one that you guys still have, I believe is called Trim, that really dominated everything in the industry, but you've expanded to dozens, if not even more than dozens, even though that can go pretty far, but dozens of different products to help complement what's going on in the machining world. Talk a little bit more about that growth and expansion of the chemicals, of the properties, of the understanding of how the fluids work.
Sure. His first formulation is what's known as Trim Regular. We still sell it to this day, which is amazing, right? But over the years, that was a synthetic formula. We've adapted as the industry's changed. The types of machines, the speeds, the feeds, the tooling. The one thing that stayed consistent is we always wanted to do something that was going to take care of the people, that was going to be safe for them to use, that was going to be safe for the machines. So we've never given up on that, but we have changed from our first synthetic formula to the Trim Sol formula in the 60s and 70s that really grew the business, soluble oil and emulsion. And then as we moved into the 2000s, we shifted to semi-synthetics, microemulsions, and now we're talking about neosynthetics and all kinds of new technology.
I like it. And I like the statement that stood out to me a lot, Dave, is that you said we want to take care of people. We want to make sure they're safe. That might have not always been the thought in the beginning, right? We wanted to create something that worked. Asbestos is something out there that we're still trying to remove. So thank you for doing that to begin with. Now, as we move into present day, what's it look like now as we're talking about this company and this growth and everything going into the future? What's it look like now?
Sure. Well, as you mentioned, we've really become this global company, right? So we have to look at our markets around the world. We have to be close to our customers because we package stuff in, drums and tote bins and tank wagons. They're expensive to move around, and there's logistics cost. And as we look at, trying to reduce our carbon footprint and everything, we want to make sure we're doing that as efficient as possible. So we build our plants close to our customers. We have distributors that improve the logistics of our products as we move them around and reduce cost for our customers to make them as competitive as possible. And really, the enabler of all that is our technology, our research and development team that goes out there, that identifies materials that, again, are friendly to the people and the planet, but improve performance and reduce usage. So I've been here for 30 years. We used to have good products. We now have great products. And the life of these products has gotten so much longer where they really last in the machine.
30 years. I knew I was talking to a guy with wisdom. That's amazing. And your branding is working because these colors are great. Now, we're talking about these cutting fluids, right? And we're talking about constantly growing into a different avenue of, synthetics and neosynthetics. And it's constantly focusing on, you mentioned we have different programs and different machines and different tooling. Has that adaptation as software has become better, as machines have become faster, as cutting tools have become more geometrically accurate, this through spindle coolant that goes into a machine as well, has that adaptation been simple? Is it something that was adapted pretty easily? And when you're educating people, because going back to the beginning of this conversation, I wasn't really educated coming into it. I could have used this 20 years ago when I first started.
Yeah.
Do you find that people are learning more about the importance and significance of what you guys have created here?
I think so. For the majority of the industry, again, things have become more and more important on efficiency and finish and quality. So if you look at the machines people are using today, they're high-speed, high-pressure fluid systems that aren't easy to put a fluid together that's got the high lubricity, the high cooling, and still works in a machine that's 2,000 plus PSI coolant systems. So that's our challenge, is how do we develop both the cutting side of things to allow the machines to perform, along with the environment and people-friendly and non-cutting functions, as we call them, things like foam and rust protection and all of that.
You actually beat me to a statement. It's great to know that you're a mind reader amongst these 30 years of experience, as well as I can, on a personal level from a story, I was in with the customer, and they were having foaming issues, and believe it or not, the company that came in was you guys to help remove the foaming from a through spindle coolant situation with high pressure. They just couldn't get rid of it. So you guys came in, analyzed everything that was going on, analyzed the machine itself, brought in what you thought would be best and what would work best, and guess what? It did.
Yeah.
It did. So
Yep.
now we know about the past. We know about the present. Let's talk about the future. What does the future look like? I can imagine with 70 plus years now, you know it's going to be bright. And even over the last few years, you continue to hire people and bring people in.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we continue to invest and expand our technical staff to formulate for the future. Challenges that we face are the ever-changing materials and machines, but also the ever-changing regulatory environment. So we have to make sure that while we make safe products, they're also compliant with the different regulations around the world, which becomes more and more challenging. So we talk about it, we always have a toolbox that the formulators can work with, but that toolbox keeps getting smaller. So we have to go out and do more research, look at different industries to identify materials that we could possibly incorporate into our products, and then go through our rigorous testing process in our lab, benchtop, in our machining lab that we have here in-house where we test fluids and can run customers' programs, and then ultimately out in the customer and partnering with them to improve their operations.
Well, walking around your facility, Dave, you mentioned being able to test in your facility. You have a fantastic machine shop where you can do that. Walking around, I see tanks that are massive, but also what you guys call a salad bar, where you can cater to smaller orders, people who want more done or more orders in larger tanks. You can specifically create something just for them. So walking around, you really are catering to the whole industry and the whole globe.
Yeah, we have our top selling products that, fill those huge tanks and leave here in tank wagons and drums and tote bins and everything. But we also have, over 100 formulas, right? So we can kind of customize depending on the customer's needs and situations, and that's why we love that salad bar. It gives us flexibility in packaging. We can package in small containers, 1-gallon containers, 5-gallon pails, 54-gallon drums, depending on what they need. And then we have our distribution network around the country, around the world that has that close to the customer so they can get their product just in time.
Speaking of that, can we talk a bit about service and support? How significant and important is service and support to you guys?
Yeah, it's critical, because what we find is, we can develop the best fluid in the world, and we think we do, but if it goes out and the customer misapplies it or uses it at the wrong concentration on the wrong type of materials, then they're not going to be happy. They're not going to be satisfied. It potentially tarnishes our brand. So we want to be there with the customer, help them understand how they can optimize with fluids, what they're already doing with tooling and machines. So we have a team of people here in North America and around the world that go out, work with their customers on the applications. We have service engineers that will follow up after the fact and test the fluids, and recommend how can the customer better use our fluids.
Going around the world and having these types of interviews with people and talking about machines and then the tooling and the work holding and everything that goes along with the whole manufacturing process, I would say that sometimes coolant isn't looked at as quickly as a cutting tool or work holding, but I think it should be.
Yeah.
When I talk to you, when I walk around here, when I see the difference between poor cutting fluid and the correct cutting fluid and seeing how much money is saved on just tool life alone,
right,
or on not a scrap part and having that finish, this is something, in my opinion, our voices should be amplified and people should pay attention to what's going on in the fluid world, because software, cutting tools, work holding, the longevity of the machine, all of this, it all goes through the fluid as well. It's going through the interior of the machine. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, exactly. And we've got years of experience and thousands of customers that have seen the difference, right? It's a small portion of their spend, of their total manufacturing spend, but it impacts everything. It impacts the life of the tools, the life of the machines, the operators, how happy they are at work, right? Ultimately that can be the biggest thing that turns off an operator, if their coolant smells bad, if it foams, if it causes other problems. So, we've had a number of customers that have thanked us because we've made their operators happier.
Well, I'd like to thank you as well for the conversation. But
right,
before we finish this off, we've talked about the past, we've talked about the present, we've talked about the future. But as a part of that future, let's also talk about eco-friendliness, which we touched on a few times. But let's elaborate a bit more on what it means to you and where you're going with it.
Yeah, so there's many different facets to eco-friendliness, right? The first facet that we always look at is how long does the fluid last? How much does the customer have to use? Even things like the amount of water they have to use, because around the world water can be scarce. So if we can help them reduce the amount of water that they have to use in their manufacturing process, that's important to a lot of people. So our fluids look at reducing the amount of carry-off on ships, on parts, things like that. The other part, as we look at the future, is selecting those raw materials that go into it. We try to pick products that have a good environmental profile, but also can be biodegradable, that really, I guess, go above and beyond what we had years ago as far as metalworking fluids.
And it sounds like you really are. I mean, that point you just brought up, it's an obvious statement, but not if you don't think about it. And
right,
when you made it, a light bulb went off like a cartoon character. You're right. The majority of the world actually doesn't have the water that's necessary to create what they. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing all the wisdom. 70 plus years at MTD. We wish you beyond another 70 plus, another more generations. We're on going into the fourth right now.
Yeah, exactly.
So we wish you all the success, Dave. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing this wisdom with the audience, guys. I hope you've learned as much as I have today with Dave. This part of this industry is amazing and fascinating to me, but I'm still just getting in, so thank you for that.
All right, thank you, Tony. We appreciate you coming to visit us and all you do for the industry.